40 years ago, on the 27th of July 1963, a handful of mourners watched the passing of Portsmouth's last trolleybus. No official ceremony had been organised. This was in sharp contrast to events which had surrounded the introduction of the sleek new electric buses when the corporation had laid on a lavish welcome. In 1936, civic celebrations had also marked the passing of the trams, when the retiring chairman of the Transport Committee, John Simpson, described the trolleybus as neither fish nor fowl, nor good red herring. A tram man through and through, Simpson predicted the trolleybuses would all be gone within 10 years. In fact, the system flourished well into the early 50s, but by the end of the decade, with electric street traction in Britain in terminal decline, the system was phased out between 1958 and 1963. Although principally devoted to the trolleybuses, this video includes bus, ferry and paddle steamer footage, as well as rare scenes of the trams. Even in 2003, it is still possible to find traces of the city's tramway heritage. For example, a length of carefully preserved interlaced track in Rugby Road. Also preserved is the former Stubb Terminal on Broad Street, used until 1936. From this location, vehicles once crossed the harbour aboard the floating bridge to Gosport. The terminus had been used by electric and before that horse trams. Portsmouth was very early in the tram field, the first horse trams running as early as 1865. The chosen gauge of 4 foot 7 3/4 inches allowed for through running of railway vehicles. Subsequently, other horse-operated routes were opened by different companies, one of which was the Provincial Tramways Company Limited. In 1883, the Provincial acquired all the tramways in the Portsmouth area, including a 3-foot gauge line linking Gosport Ferry and Brockhurst. The horse system in Portsmouth reached its zenith in 1893, with some 14 route miles. Between 1896 and 1901, Portsmouth was home to this unusual monster, which was powered by liquid fuel. Having purchased the tramways within its boundaries, Portsmouth Corporation embarked upon a massive electrification programme in 1901, the first cars running on the 24th of September. Service was provided by 80 open toppers, built in the electric railway and tramway carriage works in Preston. When the last horse trams bowed out 100 years ago in May 1903, 4 of the best G.F. Milnes bodies were converted into electric cars. In 1936, one of these, number 84, was set aside for preservation. After spending many years in store, it was transferred to Southampton in 1991. Unlike the first electric trams, it has direct as opposed to reverse stairs. After spending 9 years in Southampton, the car was moved on the 15th of November 2000 to its new permanent home at Hampshire's Living History Museum at Basingstoke. Open to the public in December 2000, 84 is one of the major attractions in a recreation of an Edwardian street. In 1905-06, Portsmouth took delivery of 16 open toppers with the safer direct stairs. To control dust levels and lubricate curves, 3 water cars were built between 1904 and 1919, one of which, number 103, also doubled as a rail grinder. Back now with the Provincial Tramways Company. Although forced to move out of Portsmouth, they did build a countrified line to the north of the town. Opened just over 100 years ago on the 2nd of March 1903, the 6-mile Portsdown and Horndean Light Railway would last some 32 years. To facilitate through running, it was built to the 4-foot 7 3/4-inch gauge. Mostly rural in nature, the line had both single and double track. The fleet consisted of 2 batches of 14 virtually identical cars. 2 of these survive today. One, number 13, has been partially restored and was, until a short time ago, on display at the recently closed Transport Museum in Old Portsmouth. The body was built by the British Electric Car Company of Trafford Park, Manchester, and mounted on an SB60 truck. A summer ride on the open top must have been idyllic, but daunting during the winter, especially for the driver. In 1905, 2 brush-bodied cars were purchased. The Provincial Tramways Company also traded as the Gosport and Fareham Tramways. Across the harbour, it rebuilt and electrified its old horse line to the 4-foot 7 3/4-inch gauge. With completion of the Berry Cross route in 1906, there were 7 3/4 route miles. The fleet consisted of 22 similar-looking open toppers built by 3 manufacturers, the last being delivered in 1908. So, for some 25 years, there were 3 different tramways within the Portsmouth area. After the Great War, only the corporation invested in any large-scale modernisation, relaying miles of track and purchasing 12 totally enclosed cars in 1920. Then in 1929, manager Ben Hall started upgrading older open toppers. One of the totally enclosed English electric trams can be seen in the background of this sequence filmed at Cosham Station during the Easter Fair of 1930. Also visible is the top of a Horndean car climbing the embankment up to the railway bridge. Later in 1930 came Portsmouth's pride and joy. Known as the Ben Hall car after the manager of the day, it was built in the corporation's workshops. Number 1 had an 8-foot cantilever truck, air brakes and worm drive gears. Although intended as the forerunner of a modern fleet, it remained a one-off. Sold to Sunderland in 1936, it lasted there until 1953. The fleet also included a single toast rack. Acquired from Southampton in 1919, it was given a top cover in 1930 and a boat-shaped body in 1933. Not to be outdone, the Provincial had this tram coach. Transferred from their operation in Grimsby in 1925, it only ran for a short time between Southsea and Horndean. The closure of the Gosport system on the 31st of December 1929 marked the beginning of the tramway rundown. 7 of their better cars were transferred to Horndean. Although popular with day trippers, the Horndean line suffered heavily from bus competition. Fighting to attract new passengers, service resumed through running to Clarence Pier in the summer of 1927. Brief scenes of light railway cars in action in the Cosham area. Ports Bridge. Crossing the railway at Cosham. Portsdown Hill. When Portsmouth decided to scrap its trams, the green cars were doomed, Southdown buses taking over on the 9th of January 1935. Southdown had been closely involved in the Portsmouth area since 1919. Still lurking at Cowplain Depot was the body of the liquid fuel car. Traces of the old Horndean line can still be seen today. For example, these abutments once supported the tram bridge spanning Southwick Hill Road. Clearly visible is the former right-of-way up Portsdown Hill, site of the Easter Fairs. Southdown motor services, which replaced the green trams, had played an increasingly important role in the area since 1919. On the 4th of August 1934, Portsmouth introduced its first experimental trolleybus service between Cosham and South Parade Pier. This proved hugely successful, prompting the decision to scrap the trams. To evaluate various vehicles on the market, no less than 15 experimental trolleybuses were acquired. Numbers 1 to 4 had AEC 661T chassis and English electric bodies. 5 to 7 also had English electric bodies, but Leyland chassis. 8 was a Sunbeam with an English electric body. 9 was a Carrier, again with an English electric body. 10 sported a Sunbeam MF2 chassis and a Metro Camel body. 11 also had a Metro Camel body, but a Carrier chassis. Then came 4 handsome higher capacity six-wheelers. 12 had an AEC 663T chassis with English electric 60-seater body. 13 had an identical body, but a Sunbeam MS3 chassis. 14, the first trolleybus to operate in the city, was another Sunbeam, but this time with a Metro Camel body. Finally, 15, another Metro Camel, but on an AEC 663T chassis. Between 1935 and 1936, delivery was taken of an additional 9 AECs with English electric bodies. Between 1934 and 1936, the trams were rapidly phased out. Route numbers had replaced route letters in 1927. Now drawing power from the new trolleybus overhead, colour views of some of the last trams to run through Southsea. The trams bowed out during the morning of the 10th of November 1936, when a procession of 4 cars left Guildhall Square for Eastney Depot, the last one of all, number 106, being decorated overall. Attempts to sell the 12 enclosed double-deckers failed. To cover the conversion programme, 76 Craven-bodied AEC 661Ts entered service between August 1936 and July 1937. Pompey witnessed another major changeover in 1937, this time on the railways, when new electric trains replaced steam on mainline services into London. In July 1937, local dignitaries assembled at Portsmouth and Southsea Station to officially open the new, fast electric services. However, steam continued to penetrate into Portsmouth well into the 1960s. This pre-war scene shows S-15 Class 835 hauling a coal train into the labour-intensive Fratton Yard. Note the tram passing in the background. Most of this coal would have been for domestic use. Appearing in this special 1937 coronation parade was one of the first 10 corporation motor buses, a Thornycroft of 1919. By now it carries a replacement London B-type body built by Dodson's. This remarkable vehicle is still in existence. This illuminated tram shelter was called HMS Coronation. AEC number 4 acted as the corporation's illuminated trolleybus on several occasions between 1937 and 1953. Because the rear ends of the corporation's TD4 buses looked identical to the trolleys, all the trolleybuses were renumbered 201 to 300 during April 1938. This enabled trolleybus drivers to distinguish which was which when overtaking. Carrying their new fleet numbers, these trolleys still have their original lining out and overall white roofs. A rare pre-war colour view of one of the pre-1936 trolleybuses at Canoe Lake. By the autumn of 1939, the trolleybus network covered just under 20 route miles. In September, Pompey prepared for war. Buildings were protected from blast, and further precautions included painting the roofs of all the buses and trolleybuses grey, mudguards white, and fitting headlamp masks. With its proud naval tradition, Portsmouth was an obvious target for the Luftwaffe. Many buildings like Handley's were totally destroyed, but in this case replaced by a new store. As their lack of batteries prevented them from bypassing damaged wiring, 201 to 224 were placed in store. From August 1942, the 4 six-wheelers were hired to Pontypridd. On their return, only 3 were overhauled and returned to service. After the war, new vehicles were in short supply. Furthermore, the composite bodies on the Craven AECs were deteriorating. As a result, between 1948 and 1956, over 3/4 of them would be rebuilt by the corporation. 265 was rebuilt in 1948. Here it passes the end of the former reserve tram track at Cosham. 244 would be rebuilt in 1953. Between November 1950 and March 1951, Portsmouth took delivery of 15 Birmingham-bodied BUTs. 3 major extensions were also constructed. Shown in green and orange, they opened between 1952 and 53. Further planned and authorised extensions would have replaced bus routes serving new housing developments, but these were never built. Interestingly, during this period of expansion, the mile of wiring to the floating bridge was closed as from the 30th of September 1951. On the 10th of October 1948, 265 turns at the dockyard prior to carrying a party of enthusiasts to the Guildhall, where the AEC will first run on its batteries from Park Road into Commercial Road in order to travel to the floating bridge. Negotiating the floating bridge reverser. As a cost-cutting exercise, Service 910 was temporarily suspended on the 26th of September 1953, but never reinstated. A relatively new BUT waits at Cosham Red Lion. St Mary's Church, Fratton Road. A rare view of a 10 outside the Guildhall. The day after suspension of the 910, Portsmouth opened its last sections of new wiring. Shown in orange, they were used by new services 1516, which replaced bus routes F and E. For the next 5 years, the network remained largely unaltered. However, between 1953 and 1956, many older trolleys, including the remaining six-wheelers, went for scrap. Following its wartime stint in South Wales, 214 had re-entered service in November 1947. As late as June 1954, proposals existed to buy 15 new trolleys. So when the Municipal Transport Association held its conference in Portsmouth in late September 1955, the opportunity was taken to demonstrate a modern trolleybus, Walsall's 864, a sunbeam with a 30-foot-long Willowbrook body. Sadly, no new order was placed. Instead, the Council voted in February 1957 to replace the 21.25-mile network over 7 to 8 years. Those against retention highlighted the escalating cost of new extensions, coupled with a lack of flexibility when considering improved road layouts. The noose tightened in September 1958 when General Manager H.C. Simmons stated savings of £18,000 a year would result from closing certain routes, and that many of the trolleybuses would require major overhaul during the next 6 years. 220 would be among some 20 trolleys scrapped during 1957-58. Four buses from the same period as 220 gained a new lease of life, being converted into open toppers during the mid-50s. The last of these Leyland TD4s survived in service until July 1972. Between 1919 and 1939, the corporation purchased a rich mix of buses. This is a 1932 Crosley with an English electric body. The only wartime deliveries were 9 utility Daimlers and 10 Bedford OWBs. This one was seen here at the Guildhall in the early 60s. Post-war deliveries began in 1947-8 with 25 Leyland PD1s. These were followed in 1948-9 by 31 Crosleys, with a mix of Reading and Crosley bodies. Between 1952 and 1967, the corporation would order nothing but Leylands. This Wayman-bodied PD1 is pursued by a Tiger Cub. In 1952 came a batch of 25 Leyland PD2s with 56-seater Leyland bodies. Southdown too opted mainly for Leylands during the 50s. Waiting for passengers crossing by ferry to Gosport was the mixed fleet of vehicles operated by Provincial. These early post-war sequences show guy number 57, having recently been rebodied by Reading as a convertible open topper with rear doors and coach seats. It was designed by manager Orm White and was always referred to as their coach bus. However, after one attempt to remove the roof, it never took to its open-top form again. Note the submarine diving tower in the background at Haslar. The Guy chassis dated from 1943. This low bridge at Fareham had successfully decapitated several double-deckers. On display at Hoeford Depot was ex-Southdown Leyland G7 of 1922 with its 1928 Short Brothers body. Later scenes taken in 1957. This 1934 AEC Regal with 32-seater Harrington body is followed by an AEC double-decker. This Hanson Dorset Bristol had fallen foul of the low bridge at Fareham. During the 1960s, these full-fronted Reading bodies symbolised the modern provincial image. Generations of locals and visitors will remember with affection the paddle steamers employed on the busy Portsmouth Ryde crossing. This had been railway-owned since the middle of the 19th century. These are just some of the famous paddlers to have operated on the service. First launched by Thornycroft of Southampton in 1924, Shanklin was sold in 1951, after which she continued working in the area under the name Monarch. Launched on the Clyde in 1930, Southsea and Whippingham were the first pair of modern vessels built for the crossing. Southsea was lost during the war, but Whippingham, seen here, continued working until 1963. She was powered by compound diagonal engines. Launched by Denny's in 1934, Sandown was the first vessel assigned to the crossing to have triple expansion machinery. She also supported a full-width forward observation lounge, a cruiser stern and full-length promenade deck. Her passenger certificate was for 900. She was sold for scrap in 1966. Ryde, the last paddler ordered for the crossing by the Southern Railway, was launched by Denny's in 1937. Like Sandown, she also served as a minesweeper during the war. She would last until 1969. During holiday times, thousands escaped the smoke, taking the train to the coast. A favourite destination for thousands was Southsea. The area around South Parade Pier offered a wealth of attractions. Kiddies especially enjoyed a ride on the miniature railway, located west of Southsea Castle. This 10¼ gauge line was eventually lifted during the 1980s to make way for the Sea Life Centre, now the Blue Reef Aquarium. As car ownership increased during the late 50s, numbers using public transport decreased. To save money, Service 1314 was withdrawn without replacement on the 26th of January 1959. 269 is seen on an early morning working from the Red Lion, whilst 275 stands at Hilsea. An earlier view of two 1935 AECs at North End Junction. The only known film showing 13s and 14s are these damaged outtakes from a now lost road safety film, taken in 1953 by the Portsmouth Cine Club. Action first in Kingston Road, Fratton Road. Scenes beneath the umbrella of wiring at Fratton Bridge, where the trolleys mixed with workers from the naval dockyard, then by far the city's major employer. The site of the former tram tracks are still clearly visible. By now the last of the unrebuilt Cravens had been withdrawn, together with the last of the original vehicles, numbers 201 and 224. Both these veterans ended up working peak hour specials. 201 was seen at North End. Another local loss was the floating bridge, linking Broad Street to Gosport. This view shows the Alexandra of 1864. This chain-operated contraption was pulled across for the last time on the 31st of December 1959. Adjacent to the floating bridge was another landing place, used until 1961 by the railway-owned vehicle ferry to Fishbourne on the Isle of Wight. The service was provided by a pair of double-twin screw motor ships built by Denny's in 1927. Both these double-ended vessels had assisted at Dunkirk in 1940, and both would be scrapped in 1961. The next trolleybus services to be replaced, as from the 1st of May 1960, were the heavily used 1516 and 1920. The wiring on Chichester Road remained for access to North End Depot. Notices like these informed the public of forthcoming changes. A southbound 19 rests at Cosham Compound. Both pairs of services met twice during their perambulations, at Eastney and here at Alexandra Park. This section of Commercial Road has changed beyond recognition, with construction of the Continental Ferry Terminal and the motorway. A brief selection now of images at the Victoria Road Elm Grove Junction. A northbound 20 emerges from Albert Road. Cravens pass at the Pier Hotel, as a Sundays only 19 heads for Clarence Pier, and a 20 returns north. The southern terminus of the short-lived 1516 was at Eastney. Following these closures, more AECs such as 253 and 292 went for scrap, reducing the working fleet to 55. The pre-war 52-seater Cravens were now becoming firm favourites with enthusiasts. Attracting equal attention was the Provi fleet. During a special tour held on the 7th of June 1960, participants were able to admire number 59, the first air-cooled engine bus in the UK. It had recently been rebodied by Reading following a confrontation with a potato lorry. Leon Solent. An ex-Northern General AEC in Fareham High Street. At Hoeford, the preserved Leyland G7 was again on view. A close-up of 59's Deutz air-cooled engine. The tour would conclude with a trip round the harbour on board the delightful Ferry Belle of 1924. A month later, on Sunday the 3rd of July, BUT 304 carried a group of enthusiasts around the dwindling Portsmouth trolleybus system. At Cosham, a steam-hauled train leaves the station and a Tiger Cub can be seen on service JK. The compound terminal in this form dated from 1947, with trolleybus overhead being installed the following year. Crosley was on the recently converted Service 19, which being a summer Sunday will serve Clarence Pier. Leaving North End Depot as a 15 enters Gladys Avenue en route to Alexandra Park. Travelling along Chichester Road, this 1953 wiring was now used solely for depot workings. Replacement buses on the former turning circle at Eastney, used by trolleybus service 1516 until the 1st of May. Being a Sunday, Eastney Depot was well stocked with buses. This depot is now demolished. One trolleybus to escape the scrapman was 201, which went to the Bewley Motor Museum later in the year. Purchased by the Portsmouth Ratepayers Association, it remained at Bewley until returned to Portsmouth in 1972, when it was presented to the City Museum. The 17th of September 1960 saw replacement of the 3-4, the first trolleybus route to open in August 1934. Like most Portsmouth bus and trolleybus services, each number applied in one direction only. For example, 3s work south from Cosham to South Parade Pier, the return workings being numbered 4. Crossing Port Creek, making for Cosham Compound. A southbound 3 heads for South Parade Pier, where the terminal loop was on another short length of private road. Journey time for the relatively straight run back to Cosham, 26 minutes. The axe fell next on the 2nd of December 1961, when 2 more pairs of services were replaced. The 7-8 and the 11-12 linked several residential suburbs with Fratton, Clarence Pier and the Dockyard. North End would cease to be a trolleybus depot. Green Lane Terminus featured a reversing triangle installed in 1952, when the routes were extended from Copner Bridge. Except for one BUT based at North End, the 4 services were worked by the Cravens. Heading south towards Copner Bridge. From the Strand, the 7s headed west past Palmerston Road before turning left at the Pier Hotel to make the short run to Clarence Pier. Few passengers would venture to the pier out of season. Journey time back to Green Lane, 24 minutes. Fare, 8d. A southbound PD3 passes an 8 on Western Parade. North End's solitary BUT 302 was filmed at Waverley Road. Having clattered through Fratton Bridge Junction, this 8 was just leaving the stop at Lucknow Street. To reach the Dockyard, the 11s followed a path along New Road, Lake Road, through Guildhall Square and into Park Road. Offloading at the Dockyard before approaching the 3-wire terminal loop. The area in the foreground is where the hard interchange now stands. In latter years, the 11-12s used the wire nearest the foreshore, the 1718s the middle road, and the 56s the outer. This busy loop was a stone's throw from HMS Victory. Known as the Hard, this area fronting the dockyard was often filled with workers, ferry passengers, holidaymakers, tourists and naval personnel. In former days, mudlarks had scoured the shore looking for coins thrown to them by passengers hurrying to and from the Isle of Wight ferries. Whilst waiting for the off, crews could either gossip or snatch a quick cup of tea and cigarette at the cafe. With 3 heavily used services, trolleybuses would head towards HMS Vernon every 2 to 3 minutes. This 12 was on Ordnance Row, at the start of its 3 3/4 mile journey to Green Lane. A few Cravens, like 256, were withdrawn prior to this abandonment, others immediately after, and some, like 254, served for a few more weeks. The small white fleet numbers carried on the sides had first been introduced in June 1938. The first BUT to be withdrawn was 303 following an accident in April 1961. Only 24 trolleys now remained on the roster. These comprised 10 of the rebuilt Craven-bodied pre-war AECs. And 14 of the post-war Burlingham-bodied BUTs. Snow has never been particularly common in Portsmouth, so every chance was taken to film the trolleys during the bitter winter of 1962-3. With the end clearly in sight, several special tours were organised, including one with 274 on the 7th of April 1963. Time was taken at Eastney Depot to inspect various relics, including this ancient horse-drawn tower wagon. Dating from 1931, this oil-engined Crosley Condor had been converted into a breakdown wagon in 1950. This elderly all-Leyland TD4 of 1935 was still in regular use. Here, the 28-year-old was filmed again at Alexandra Park. Shortly before replacement of Service 1718, another of the surviving Cravens was hired to tour the remaining wiring. 248 had been rebuilt as recently as October 1954. Here it undertakes an unusual battery turn from Cotner Road into Madeira Road at Green Lane Terminus. Corporation official Mr. Charles Phillips repositions the trolley poles. Trolley wheels had been replaced by carbon skids in 1939. However, in wet weather, the carbon dust created a clogging paste, which meant the skids sometimes needed replacing after a single trip. Heaven's light was definitely no longer shining on electric street traction. Manager Simmons' plans for eliminating the trolleys was nearing fruition. After some delay due to a shortage of new buses, the 1718 service was finally replaced as from the 23rd of June 1963. The wiring shown in green was retained for early morning and late evening journeys. The last pre-war trolleys also bowed out. These next sequences were filmed during different weather conditions at various times during the early 60s. First will come views of the 1718s working from the dockyard to Bradford Junction, where the services diverged. The 17 working one way anti-clockwise round a long residential loop. The 18s clockwise. Action at busy HMS Vernon Junction, to the east of the bridge carrying the railway to the harbour station. Here the trolley booms were pushed hard over to provide sufficient clearance. The wires were carried in wooden troughs attached to the underside of the bridge. To minimise delays at busy junctions, automatic frogs have been installed starting in 1936. Running beside the railway embankment in Park Road. These were the last routes serving Guildhall Square, the commercial road routes having gone in December 1961. For many years these services had been the preserve of the Cravens. Latterly, BUTs had appeared as well. This one was moving across the square, curving towards the cobbles in Greetham Street. Filmed from Jacob's Ladder footbridge looking back towards the Guildhall. weaving past the Morning Star pub into the tightly packed older neighbourhoods leading to Bradford Junction. The S-bend at Somers Road. Approaching the web of wires at Bradford and Fratton Bridge junctions. This was where the two services diverged. Outbound 17s turning south to reach Eastney by way of Albert Road. In the middle of the Bradford Junction intersection was this former tram shelter. A mercifully foreshortened ride revives memories of a bouncy on-board trip to Eastney. After leaving the Golden Hind, the 17s continued past the depot, heading towards Milton. Goldsmith Avenue. Looking along the fossilised tram tracks in Rugby Road towards Bradford Junction as two 17s pass, one inbound to the Guildhall, the other outbound for Eastney. Outbound 18s reach Eastney in the reverse direction, passing under the weight of wires suspended above the road junctions on the south side of Fratton Bridge. Turning onto Goldsmith Avenue past Fratton Station. Repolling outside the depot. Views now of inbound trolleys working back from Bradford Junction to the dockyard. In peak hours, a few journeys short work to this very tight loop installed at the Guildhall in 1941, as repolling caused flashes during the blackout. Back at HMS Vernon, junction with the 5-6. Watch the conductor pull the frog to switch the overhead point, giving access to the near side wire on the dockyard loop. The combined 17-18 service, one of the heaviest in the city, ran approximately every 6 minutes, with a journey time round the full circle of 36 minutes. Now just one long regular route remained, the 5-6. Although the BUTs had dominated these services since 1952, the next scenes, taken variously over a period of years, do feature the occasional AEC. Journeys from the dockyard to Cosham carried the service number 5. Journey time 41 minutes, at a bargain fare of 11p, just under 5p in today's money. Passing one of the old city gates on St George's Road. At this time, Portsmouth abounded in tramway relics. Track could still be seen in Southsea Terrace, and the ornate shelter had once stood outside St Mary's Church. Later, it would be repositioned onto the seafront, where it still stands today. Another view of Southsea Terrace with the former Pier Hotel. Swinging past a parked Ford Anglia in Western Parade. The stop at South Parade Pier was always busy during the season. Here fives took the inner wire, the outer wire leading onto the loop. Solid cross spans attached to old tram poles supported the overhead on Highland Road. Negotiating the automatic frog at Milton White House, leading on to the 1952 extension to Hilsea. Leaving the prison on the one-way section approaching Copner Bridge. Side bracket arms were used on either side of the wide bridge over Ports Creek. Hurrying along the final leg towards Cosham Red Lion. Arriving at the Red Lion, the number was changed to 6 for the return journey. Also, the destination screen showed Palmerston Road and not Dockyard. This informed passengers that the 6 made a much longer route into town. This view is filmed from the spot where the Horndean trams crossed the railway. This 6 was crossing the railway on Northern Road just before making the sharp 90-degree turn into the private road leading to the interchange facility at Cosham Compound. Emerging onto Portsmouth Road. Speeding over Ports Bridge on to Portsea Island. The M27 now dominates this area. Running in front of South Downs Hilsea Depot. This was the one-time junction with the services to North End. Here the 6 heads off along the 1952 extension into Copner Road. Near the rhubarb farm on Copner Road. After crossing Copner Bridge, entering the northern end of the one-way section to travel along Baffin's Road. The poles used on parts of this 1952 extension had come from London and had once supported the wires used by tram routes 16 and 18 and trolleybus route 612. Leaving the one-way stretch and entering leafy Milton Road. Milton White House marked the southern limit of the 1952 extension. Linking up with the original route into Eastney, which had replaced the last trams in November 1936. Eastney was a densely populated area, mainly of older terraced houses. To reach the seafront at Southsea, the six turned out of Highland Road, past the Festing Hotel, into Festing Road. Reflecting the high density of summer traffic, a motorbus providing a duplicate 6 pursues the BUT into St Helens Parade. Probably the majority of passengers will enjoy the canoe lake and the other assorted amenities. Fire has destroyed 2 of Southsea's piers, this one going up in smoke during the making of the film Tommy. Southdown PD3 passes on Clarendon Road, approaching Hanley's Corner. Hurrying along Western Parade, past elegant Victorian buildings, mainly in use as council offices or overflow classrooms for the Polytechnic. Approaching the junction for Clarence Pier. The ornate Royal Pier Hotel building was demolished in the 90s, after ending its days as a hostel. This former intersection with the floating bridge route was referred to by conductors as Cambridge Junction. St George's Road. Opened between 1929 and 1931, Eastney had been the only trolleybus depot since December 1961. During the early morning peak, some sixes took up service by turning right into Eastney Road, whilst others ran light to Milton. .304 was filmed on White House Loop on the 1st of June 1963, as it prepared to work the 8:30 a.m. to the dockyard. Several sixes also started here on Sundays. Rare film of 248 on the once weekly duty, still using the Green Lane reverser. This was a 6 p.m. Fridays only, untimetabled arrival, which then ran back to the depot. On Fridays, out-muster from the dockyard was at a different time, resulting in different peak hour workings. The conductor was wearing his light summer jacket, complete with white top on his cap. Passing a Swanbrook coach, this was one of 4 early morning departures from South Parade Pier. These shorts catered for workers heading into town. A quick glimpse of conductress Dot with her massive hair. She was a well-known character on the trolleys and can be seen sitting on the back seat. A number of local enthusiasts witnessed the passing of the trolleys on the 27th of July 1963, one of whom, Richard Newman, also kept this detailed account of the closure programme. Interestingly, the local paper always omitted the E from trolley, simply dismissing it as superfluous, as far back as 1934. No film has come to light of the last night. The last vehicle was 313, which came from the dockyard via the Guildhall as an 18. It was adorned with nothing more than a single wreath, placed in position by the Deputy General Manager on arrival back at Eastney shortly before midnight. On the Sunday, TW2 towed the redundant trolleybuses to North End to await collection by the scrapman. Converted to a tower wagon in 1952, this Leyland TD2 dated from 1933. "313, the last service trolley, wends its way to North End." This group, filmed on the 5th of September 1963, ended their days at Jordan's scrapyard at Dundas Spur. Whilst others, having initially gone to Jordan's, were moved to the Hampson Sussex aviation scrapyard near the old city airport. Purchased for preservation by enthusiast John Reeves, 313 leaves en route for storage in West Sussex. Amazingly, under 4 years later, it would take to the wires again, in Bournemouth. Before this, a few contemporary bus scenes. Some Southdown wartime guys soldiered on until the 1960s. Action at Hilsea with Park Royal-bodied PD1s. One of the 80 Leyland-bodied PD2s bought in 1948. A Northern Counties-bodied PD2 follows a Leyland-bodied PD2 on a 41 relief, which closely followed the route of the Horndean Light Railway. Provincial number 55 had a 1942 7'6" chassis, but a 1955 8-foot wide Reading body. It was withdrawn in 1970. The last of the full-fronted rebodied guys lasted until 1973. This ex-City of Oxford AEC Region 5 was in the Provincial fleet from 1970 to 1975. This is the relocated Gosport Ferry bus station. A Seddon 4. Another Seddon, followed by number 29, ex-Southdown number 104. Another former Southdown Leyland Leopard. The last of the corporation's famous pre-war open toppers lasted until 1972. In the early 70s, they were replaced by 6 of the 1956 Leyland PD2s. All these were withdrawn in January 1980. Number 2 still exists today. Hill C with a PD2 on learner duties. A Leyland Panther cub. A single-decker Atlantean heads out of the city. The Metro camel-bodied Leyland Atlanteans, which had helped replace the trolleybuses, plus subsequent batches, were withdrawn during the mid to late 70s, many of them being sold for service elsewhere. Before entering into a long hibernation, 313 took part in a remarkable tour of the dwindling Bournemouth system. This was organised by the National Trolleybus Association on the 30th of April 1969. By now, trolleybuses with their fixed installations were in national decline, the last outpost at Bradford closing in 1972. Even now, 313 was just 16 years old, relatively young for a trolleybus. Today, 313 is at the East Anglia Transport Museum. Some of the profit from the sale of this video will go towards sparking this 50-year-old vehicle back to life. (1969) also marked the end of another era when Ryde, the very last operational paddle steamer on the south coast, was withdrawn. Fortunately, this fine old vessel did escape the breakers, but after serving for some years as a bar and restaurant, today she is more or less derelict. In Portsmouth, there is still plenty of evidence of the city's transport heritage. The shelter at Cosham Compound was previously a tram shelter at the Guildhall. It is hoped it may still have a future life at the Gun Wharf Quays complex. Most numerous are various traction poles. Nothing much survives of North End Depot, demolished in 1982. The former transport offices in Highland Road are now used by the local constabulary. This shelter at Southsea is the one which was previously located at Southsea Terrace, and before that it served the trams at St Mary's Church. Sadly, the vintage bus and tram collection housed in Old Portsmouth was closed early in 2003, and the vehicles, including Portsdown and Horndean 13, were dispersed. Trolleybus number 1 is in store at Basingstoke. It is to be hoped this important vehicle might one day be back on public display, acting as a permanent reminder of Portsmouth's one-time trolleybus system, which served the city swiftly, silently and efficiently for nearly 30 years. Now attention is focused on the long-awaited return of electric traction with building of the South Hants Rapid Transit, expected to be operating between Fareham and Portsmouth via Gosport in 2007. Appropriately, the new light rail vehicles will emerge from their underwater tunnel at the Hard, a one-time terminus for both Portsmouth trams and trolleybuses. And in the second phase, the light rail could continue to Horndean,